Glen Hollow is a village of which many do not know, a dark and most deserted place, and as such few will go. Crumbling old stone buildings, nestled lonely in the hills, the wind does howl and wail past broken doors and window sills. Grass and trees and wicked weeds spew out from up the ground, but there's naught a trace of wildlife, no sight or smell or sound. The old ruin is quite walkable, there's not much left to search. A dried up well, some houses too, and the tower of the church. There is little of outstanding to tell about this place, save for how all of its residents disappeared without a trace. A solitary community once called this stead their home. Perhaps a tradesman might pass through, but most kept unto their own. In fact, it was a merchant who'd shed light upon this story, as one day he happened upon this spot, seeing all its awful glory. Traversing that long muddy road, the village must have been a sight, a chance of warmth, perhaps some food, to put body and soul to right. But instead of busy villagers all going about their day, he found a scene of torment so blatant on display. Doors and windows broken through, thatch roofs were torn apart. 'Twas the case with every home, yet this was just the start. In spite of all his growing fears, which urged him on to flee, he wished to know what happened here, and where the villagers might be. With carefulness in every step, each house did get a look, the signs of struggle everywhere that left him coldly shook. Bloody splatters stained the walls, the tables and the floors. Hacks and scratches could be found, both in and outside of the doors. Turned over beds and furniture, from where people tried to hide. Their fingernails left their marks, as some were dragged outside. Could there be bandits in these parts? The thought did cross his mind. Yet what possessions people owned were at sight all left behind. A wolf pack might have made their way into the hills that searched for food, but such a force to come this far, someone would have seen this brood. Whatever was the cause of this most unsettling of scenes should be avoided at all costs, and by whatever means. The faint signs of the struggle left disturbed into the dirt only added to this mystery and further disconcert. There were no horses left around, nor cows or dogs nor sheep. Not even rats did scurry round, no earthbound thing did creep. Only birds resided here, the odd one wood saw by, crows and rooks, the jackdaws too, though they remained up high. He followed on that trail, carved out with screaming dread, stained more and more with every step, with what the villagers had bled. The quiet there was palpable, as if a trap was set to spring. If but one sound was whispered there, it would call a monstrous thing. Soon he came unto the centre, where the buildings circled round a well, and on the other side of which the village church did dwell. The merchant made his way towards it, in hopes to find reprieve, but as he reached its stony steps, a feeling made him grieve. The west doors were wide open, and not a soul remained inside. He thought he might move closer, in case someone there did hide. Making his way up the steps, he kicked something he'd not eyed. Jumping back and staring down, was a journal cast aside. Leaning down, he picked it up. A bloodied handprint stained the binding, but where the author of it was, he would be soon to finding. He meant to take the book inside and read it in the church, but a sudden splash came from the well, and the sound did make him lurch. Spinning back to face the well, a crow stood on the stone. It stared into the water hole, letting out a cawing drone. A new thought came into his mind, and one he'd soon regret. To make his way close to the well, the unease made him sweat. With each and every step towards the well there came a thought. Run away, run far away, from what danger may be wrought. Despite his soul's most urgent pleas, the well was soon in reach. The crow flew off with one last caw, as if warning in its speech. Staring at the withered rocks, his fear did only grow, thinking this encircled drop was hiding something down below. Smears of red were sparsely faded in the grey and chiselled stone. Scratch marks did drag down inside. This chilled him to the bone. With one last look around, in hope someone might appear to spare him from this awful place, but it seems the coast was clear. As silent as he could, he took in one last breath of air before leaning over in the well, and could not break his stare. What light did reach the water deep confirmed he was a fool to peer inside of this abyss and its reeking crimson pool. The more he stared, the more made clear of what happened to this water, as floating on the surface still were the remains of such a slaughter. Hands and feet, a head as well, the offal floated too. He wanted to just break away, but as yet could not do. Not until a bubble did break the water's skin, and several more did follow on. Something rose up from within. The merchant did not want to see. As he moved back from the well, a sudden splash had echoed out, then a grunt fresh out of hell. Treading back with softened step, he'd not look in again. From further sounds did ripple out that racked his soul with pain. A disgusting, sloppy chewing noise, some tearing and a crunch, as if whatever had resurfaced there was having at its lunch. In that very moment, the birds did caw and cry. No longer able to take more, the merchant set to fly. He ran back past each empty house, feet stamping in the dirt, as though abandoning their ghostly shells and burying their hurt. By whatever luck or blessing, the merchant made it out alive, and from the settlement he came to first, the legend sowed and thrived. It was only here he noticed he had the journal still at hand. Town and city folk alike were soon to understand. The journal had belonged to a priest that it would seem, and his recounts of what occurred painted a true nightmarish dream. Now this priest, he had been living there for many years he'd claim, supported by some other clergy familiar with his name. Known to be sound of heart and mind, others not deny his word, but surely what he'd written down, it had a great and many stirred. Some livestock had gone missing, and locals knew not who to blame. None came forward as the thief, and this would go on the same. Not only on the farmlands, but in the households too. Pets and pests would go astray, and none did have a clue. Save for one small child, who'd claimed to see a beast, dragging a sheep off a ways, on which he thought it feast. Some days had passed before another. This time a woman came to tell, and confessed she'd seen a monstrous form at night crawl out from the well. Pages stained or ripped apart, Weeks of story were forsaken, but now the villagers were up in arms, as children had been taken. In the final pages of the book, the priest had made it clear they'd sent off for help some time ago. None returned or did appear. The monster that was plaguing them seemed urged to keep them there, and even went out of its way to keep outsiders unaware. The villagers did make a plan, as they believed they'd found its nest deep within the village well, the waters it infest. They would lay a trap for night, whereon the creature they'd descend, and one way or another, this nightmare would reach its end. These words of revelation, which tried to explain this mystery, come to a quick and messy stop, and its answers lost to history. Who's to say what really happened in those dark and lonely hills? Whom or what could be behind such cruel and savage kills? What was written into legend must surely be a story. After all, as we all know, man and beast are keen on gory. Perhaps a deranged fellow found his way into this village, unable to restrain himself, set to murder and to pillage. Or even a large animal, driven mad by hunger great, may not have seen a human threat, but a meal that could sate. And yet there have been stories that still travel north and south. Maybe rumors, who can tell, since they go by word of mouth. Campers, hikers, urbex folk, the sort who like to stray into places most would know you'd be wise to stay away. Some come back without a thing, save for aches from such a walk. Some bring up occurrences of which they're quite afraid to talk. Others travel out that way, hope and kit within their pack, cross the hills, get out of sight, then never make it back. I'll not lecture you, my friend, for what good would that be? Instead, I'll simply offer this, should you choose to go and see. Be watchful in that cursed place, of what may lurk and follow, lest you meet that wicked thing, the Ghoul of Old Glen Hollow. Good day, I'm Jar19 and thank you for listening. So what did you think of the Ghoul of Glen Hollow? Hopefully we'll have you thinking twice before spending the night at long-abandoned, isolated locations, known for spooky goings-on. Then again, this is the horror community, so I suppose that pretty much sums up everyone's living accommodations. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then perhaps subscribe, leave a like, and if you're feeling particularly cheeky, maybe even a comment. I do hope that you'll join me again. Stay safe, sleep well, but remember, here we make monsters.